Hey folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Today's episode, we're going to be reviewing Dragon Age by Green Ronin Press. Now, this is a book that I've gotten a lot of requests for recently, so I thought it was very appropriate that we go ahead and do it. It's also important to note that I got the hard copy of that book, which I don't have with me today, I'm sorry, I can only carry so many, from the Ennies Awards this year, but I'm going to be reviewing it off of a PDF. But I do have the hardback, let me tell you about it. It is large and it is absolutely beautiful. Forewarning up front, I have never played one of the Dragon Age games, so I am not going to be able to discuss the accuracy or how well tied in the mechanics or the game is itself into those settings. Then why am I reviewing it, you ask, if I don't know what I'm talking about? Well, one, I'd like to think after all these years I've earned your trust when I can smell a good game from a bad one. And two, I think it is a very clever engine and game system that rewards clever play and has one of the most unique ways of dealing with cool stuff your characters can do that I've seen in a very long time. So we're going to talk about it. Well, up front, the mechanic itself, going away from my normal policy of doing character gen first, the engine itself is quite clever. It is a roll some dice and add a couple of numbers versus a target number that we've seen a lot before. But this time the dice have variable meaning. You roll 3 dice, and one of them has to be a different color. Now, Green Ronin has very friendly, very kindly, I should say, and very financially soundly, given us a set of dice that are unique to this game, which you can use if you want to, where 2 of the dice are the same color and 1 is a different one. However, I present to you any gamer worth his salt, his or her salt, has a large number of 6-sided dice that you can use for this reason. Now, you add those 3 numbers together, that is your dice number plus your attributes, etc., etc. The dice themselves also give you, one of the dice, the one that is a different color, also gives you the number of stunt points that you generate for a given roll. The number of stunt points. Now, the stunt tables tell you what you can do with those values, tell you what you can do with that attribute. Now, there are the variable stunts that you can have. There are combat stunts, exploration, organizational growth, which is a very nice touch here, so your organization can get better and more powerful. Plot stunts, role-playing stunts, and spell stunts. I'm going to focus on combat because, let's face it, we all came out of the D&D tradition, or at least most of us did, and if we're not killing green people and taking their stuff, we don't know what we're doing here. The combat stunt table that you have to work with deals with everything from 1 or more stunt points skirmish. You can move yourself or the target 2 yards away in whichever number of stunt points you spend. That's 1 or more. 2 is a disarm. You can attempt a disarm maneuver. Another 2 would be taunt. Other things you can do, defensive stance, which costs you 2 stunt points. A lightning attack, which costs you 3. You make a second attack within the same area of it, and you get a second attack out of it. A mighty attack, or the mighty blow, you get an extra d6 damage. Up to and including 5, which is lethal blow, you do an extra 2d6 damage. Seize the initiative, you can change the tempo of the battle as you see fit. Now, the better ones of these cost more, but you can mix and match. For instance, if your stunt die was a 6, that you could do a lethal blow and you could skirmish and move yourself or someone else. Or you could skirmish someone right off of a cliff. If you feel like spending most of them on moving people, remember each one of the skirmish is 2 yards away. Pierce armor. You can find a way to bypass their armor, and their armor rating is only worth half of what it's listed as. This is a very clever and cinematic way of giving your players a lot more control over I stand there and I hit them. One of the nice ideas here is that this really gives you a fluid combat system where you have the ability to change the battlefield rather than just standing there and slogging away at each other. I think that's very clever, and I think it's very well done. I like that quite a bit. As I said, there are these for a variety of applications. Now, the characters themselves are made up of 8 attributes. These 8 attributes are not particularly esoteric or strange. They'd be about what you expect. And I think it's worth pointing out that Green Ronin right now seems to have a thing for 8 attributes because that's what Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition has. So you've got communications, constitution, cunning, dexterity, magic, perception, strength, and willpower. Okay. The only one of those I trip over slightly is cunning as intelligence. I tend to think as cunning as your manipulative ability or your ability to think around corners, but here it's just raw intellectual horsepower. Magic, you'll notice, is a completely second ability, so that all your magic-using type characters don't have to be geniuses. There are 3 classes for you to play with here: a warrior, a rogue, and a wizard. That's it. And anything you want is some variation contained therein. There's not a specific character class or divinely powered class that you get to access here. That comes under the wizard or mage sort of class that you have there. Your attributes go up quite a bit depending based on not only your initial rolls, but then you go through your backgrounds. Backgrounds and races are spot welded together here. So you can be an elven noble, an elven scholar, or an elven wizard, or an elven archer are going to be fundamentally different types of characters than would initially have. Each one of these gives you a couple of little boosts. For example, some might add one to one of your abilities. You pick a couple of foci, more on foci in just a second. That's how this game handles skills. You pick a language, and it also limits your classes. For example, you can't be a wizard if you're from a society that has absolutely no wizards in it. Sorry, none of that fanwank here. Then you roll 2d6 twice on a table that can give you anything from a boost to some of your attributes to more foci, that sort of thing. Now the foci are where skills come in. And rather than having them specifically ranked separately from the ability in question, they're just a bonus. So everything you do is an ability check. It's just if you have the appropriate focus or skill, that adds 2 to it. So under fighting, for example, you have your different weapon classes, axes, short blades, long blades, etc. Under intelligence, you have different scholarly skills, etc., etc., etc. This is a very clean way of doing it and makes your character sheet a lot easier because you have ability and then you just write down the focus you have and then you just automatically know to add 2. As you go up in levels, the class you choose gives you a bonus to some of your abilities. Like there are class abilities and non-class abilities. Depending on the level you're going up to, those add up. Once you reach a certain threshold, usually 5, then that changes the number of advances you have to go up to the next level. And the clean way that this works as a system is it's 3d6 plus your attribute plus your focus versus a target number. That nice, that easy. As I said, there's a lot of this that ties into the background of the setting. I don't understand the background of the setting because I've never played a game, but there's some touches here that are very nice. There's the idea of shadow spawn and shadow taint, where the bad guys, once you're infected by these, then there's no redeeming, there's no cure. You have to kill them and put them out of their misery, which gets away from the whole green genocide that we have in a lot of other fantasy role-playing games. Look, they're a species of a different color. They have tusks, therefore they're inherently evil. Let's kill them and take their stuff. The shadow spawn can't help it. They've been tainted. You have to get rid of them. There are a bunch of them listed here of various levels of ability and various levels to ability to stomp you into the ground. This is a dark fantasy game where magic, if improperly handled, can open you up to demonic forces and taint itself. Finally, there are organizations which you can either play, be part of, or vie with for authority and power that make the game more or less interesting depending on your point of view. This holds up beautifully as a fantasy game that is non-D20, that you can see some Tolkien background in here. There are elves, there are dwarves, etc. But it really takes a severe right-hand turn in the area of dark forces and dark magic and becomes its very own thing. I like it quite a bit. I think it is probably one of the better straight fantasy role-playing games that's not Dungeons & Dragons that I've seen come out over the past couple years because it does its own thing. The game design that went into this is, it's brilliant. The whole idea of your stunt die, and when you roll doubles or triples, it means something different. It's mechanically interesting, but it's not so mechanically cumbersome that you get lost or bogged down, which I think is a very nice touch because I've said up front, I'm a very simple creature. I can't remember 15,000 fiddly little rules that I have to keep in the air at various times. I like straightforward stuff. This is straightforward enough I could see myself running this without causing myself too much mental hemorrhage. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming.